last seminar we focused on screening. It allows us to collect information on our client's body, its limitations, strengths and weaknesses, and where it's likely to fail. That knowledge will inform our programming and help us determine what exercises to use and which ones to avoid. When it comes to interpreting the screening, don't get sucked into the fine detail and minutiae yet. Start macro and work to micro. Don't get it backwards. As part of that process, we're going to compartmentalise our problems. We're going to start with the biggest chunks we can and try and get them off the table, because that lowers our opportunity of making a bad decision. Right. So when we talked about the movement breakdown before, we only talked about it in the context of those movement families, but it applies to the body as well. Whether you're using it to understand the body or an exercise, the framework is exactly the same, right? That means if you can describe your client's body in terms of the movement breakdown and the movement in those terms, you can map one onto the other and see what doesn't match up, right? Now you've got an indication of where you need to modify things, progress things, and regress them. For those that don't remember, this is that movement breakdown, and it's the same whether it's for applying for the movement. We've got the core, interfaces, extremities, which break down into their separate parts. Then we go on to passive stress, which defines our structure or our limitations. And then we have active stress. Active stress is always subordinate to passive stress because it's applied within the structural limitations. Don't start focusing on, is this an active issue, when you haven't gone, oh, hang on, that's actually beyond the passive structure, passive limitations of my client. That's why it's going well. Passive, then active. Right. Talk very briefly just before about how we can map the client onto that same hierarchy. If you look at the cheat sheets, one of the big parts is assessment, and then that's broken down into C for core, I for interfaces, E for extremities. And it's there for every assessment. You can use that to get guidance on the information you're collecting and how that maps onto all those different stress locations. Oh, that sounds like a little bit. If you're uncertain about what you've found, talked about before, use the compare to section. Okay? Ask the same question a different way by doing a different assessment and see if you still keep seeing the same problems. If that's the case, what you found is probably true. Mapping the movement. You guys have had a crack at this already. There's a little bit of confusion still between passive and active, and what sort of terms you use to describe it. Use your knowledge of anatomy, whatever level your knowledge is at. Joint articulation and movement. So you've got different planes like frontal and sagittal. You've got different types of articulation like flexion, extension, circumduction. We talk about pronation, supination, valgus, varus. There's an enormous amount of language we have to describe how the body moves. Use that language to describe exercises or the body in terms of where something is happening, which is the stress location, and what is happening, which is the type of stress being applied. As we talked about before, passive stress focuses on the structures you can't change. Bone length, bone shape, ligaments, tendons, muscle length. Active stress focuses on how movement occurs within those structural limitations, which is our proprioception, coordination, strength, and speed. And the big focus is going to be proprioception and coordination, because without those, you can't express power, strength, speed, all that sort of stuff. Right, that was pretty quick. Any questions on that? Does it sort of make sense to people? Especially the idea, the big one is that you can map the body onto the movements, because it's all talking about the same areas, the same types of stress. If you have a movement that demands a certain range passively at the hips, and your client doesn't map onto that, they actually fall short of that, you know you've got a problem, right? And you need to accommodate that limitation.
I think for me, the only sort of little spot that I confuse those two things is when we're talking about self-generation. So, for instance,
like the arch.
And when we use the terminologies of passive and active for the actual motor function assessments versus when we're breaking them down
Yeah.
into movement, into the different movements. So core,
So
interface,
the self-generated is more, whether it's self-generated or self-assisted for that hollow in the arch, they're both active.
Yeah.
The difference is that
Correct.
with this self-assisted one where they get to use their arms and they relax here, what we're doing is taking away opportunities for them to do the movement incorrectly. Right? So before we were talking about the scapular assessment, you need to know what a good one feels like so you know what a bad one feels like. It's the same for the hollow and the arch. That self-assisted one puts them into the correct position, they get tight, lift up. Now they know what that position feels like and they have a reference for what's wrong. You find a lot of people who have never done a hollow or an arch before, once they've done that once, now they have a reference point and they go to do the self-generated one, but they have to do it off the floor and they can sort of find their way back there really quickly. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah? Right, questions for you. Why do we screen people?
So that we can program better.
Yep. What information are we getting from the screening though that helps us with our programming? Really simple terms.
Basically, how they move so that it'll reflect what exercises we choose.
Yeah, pretty much. So before the screening allows us, instead of going, what should I program, or what movements I should use, can I use them at all? Right? And that's that passive versus active thing. God. So as we said before, collect information on client's body, limitations, strengths and weaknesses, likely points of failure. Informs programming, as you said, and the exercises we do and don't want to use. Where can you find guidance on the information you're collecting for different stress locations? Right at the start of this section. Cheat sheets? So it's on the cheat sheets. Which part of the cheat sheets is it? What are the three stress locations? Core, interfaces, extremities. It's part of the answer. Under the assessment, it's broken into core, interfaces, extremities. That'll give you a helping hand to know where it goes. Right. This is the custom solution part of it. Key points for a custom solution. Compartmentalizing problems. We talked about it before. Start with the macro, work your way down to the micro. We said earlier, power is expressed from the core to the extremities through the interfaces, right? And that's going to inform the order in which we start to look at problems. Prioritize passive stress before active stress. Remove opportunities to train the wrong area or perform the movement incorrectly. Retest the client to assess their progress to see whether you've actually solved the problem in front of them. Now, it's kind of hard to see here. You've got like a little whiteboard on the or not?
Marker.
Oh, I'll get a red one. So this is that little thing in the corner there. It's actually pulled from the movement breakdown. So
Quads.
at the top, we've got the core, interfaces, and extremities. This is where we start looking for problems. Right? We talked about before how power is expressed in order. If there's a problem here, it's going to cascade that way. The interfaces won't be able to gain leverage properly. The extremities won't be able to gain leverage off the interfaces. Start here, look for passive problems. Once you've identified there's no passive problems, for active ones, which are going to be your proprioception and coordination are going to be the big ones you want to go over, because strength and speed are a product of your coordination and proprioception. Right? If you get here, find nothing, start moving to here. Depending on what the movement is, it's going to determine whether you want to go for the shoulders or the hips first. If I'm doing a deadlift or assessing a deadlift, I'm going to be looking at the hips first, right? Because that's where most of the work's going to be going. Shoulders not doing a whole lot. From overhead pressing, just doing a strict press, I'm going to start at the shoulders. Highly unlikely you're going to get through all of that and get to here and still want to solve the problem. Most of your work is going to be here.
Can I go through a case study with you then, just so I can understand it?
What's
We're
that?
trying to get passive and active a little bit. So like with core, like I have a girl, she has obviously the posterior lordosis. So would that be passive, so it's the spine, the sort of lumbar spine, blood flexing. So it'd be
Flexing or
Standing.
and then the active would be trying to get like fluid function, getting that still basically back into it.
Right, so what part of the body are the glutes a part of? Right, yeah. So the thing with the core, especially when it comes to lifting, lifting with a flexed spine, lifting with an extended spine isn't actually a huge issue. It's the movement that occurs. So if you have flexion or extension under axial compression, that's when it becomes a problem. That's why you can do a round and back deadlift as long as you get to the top and you're still there. You don't do that. That's when you start delaminating the annulus on the discs. So yeah, most of the time, the passive elements of the core, they're not going to be a problem. If they can do this, they get a pass. Whether they can maintain this is a whole other question. And because it affects whether the hips and shoulders can do their job, that's why we start there first. You don't want to go trying to solve the problem with the hips and shoulders if they're just flat out, because the core is actually all over the place, right? So we'll actually go through a case study and basically work through that process and sort of show it as a problem-solving mechanism.
That will help.
Yeah. Ryan talks about compartmentalising. The idea that power and leverage are expressed from the core to the interfaces through the extremities, and how failure at one location increases stress on the other. So even if the core's good, but the shoulders are bad, the core's going to have to be working a lot more because it's going to become more unstable, right? And then the extremities, you're going to see that it's going to be much more apparent. As far as prioritising stress, we just talked about start with the core, work to the interfaces, work to the extremities. Talked about prioritising passive stress over active stress. Right. Passive demands of an exercise exceed the client's capacity. You have to modify the exercise. Right? It's basically a non-negotiable thing. You're not changing the shape of that bone or the length of it. It's a limitation you have to work within. However, exercises should exceed the active capacity of your clients. The question is whether it exceeds it too far. Right? So it's like, I want a challenge, but I want a challenge I can do. Right? You've got to get them there in steps. If the active stress is an issue, that's when we start looking at progressions.
By that, you mean the complexity of the movement that you've selected, right?
Normally, yeah. My process I'll normally go through as far as the regression. I'll start with the load first.
Yeah.
Then I'll look at repetitions. So basically going, is it a strength problem? Is it an endurance problem? I'll drop those and they're still screwing it up. Right, we've got a mechanical problem. And that's when I start limiting the complexity. And that's what we're going to get into now. Talked when we sort of started this section, we want to remove opportunities to train the wrong area or to perform the movement incorrectly. So the broomstick bow is a perfect example of both of them. Very hard to do it incorrectly because you have so much proprioceptive feedback. It's really useful if you're not PTing someone, you're giving them a program because they don't need you to watch them to know if they're fucked up. Point of contact with the head, shoulders, butt, shins. You lose any of those, you're doing it wrong. I'm yet to see someone be able to get down into that deadlift position that doesn't look like a great deadlift without breaking one of those rules. It's almost impossible to screw it up. That's ideally what we want. So you don't have to watch them. You don't have to worry about them getting stressed out and screwing something up. Remove their opportunities to make a mistake. So we've got two case studies we're going to look at. Kim, there's Kim, and Jules. Everyone know who Jules is?
Yep.
Yeah. So externally it looks like when you watch the movement, the fault appears exactly the same for both of them. But they're not. The problem's different and the solution's different. So I'll start with Kim. Kim switches over to the conventional deadlift, gets to a point where she's pulling the bar off the ground, gets to here, and that's the first thing that happens. Comes up to the top, straightens out the spine. Comes back down, and it looks perfect. So what's going on? Same thing with Jules. Pulls off the ground, rounds the back, gets up the top, straightens out, comes back down, and it looks great.
He has improved a lot though.
Yeah, he has. So this is
Thanks
something that
to
I
you.
did with, yeah, this is something we did with Jules. I don't know if you can see it well from there. The Camden solution is negative deadlifts, but Jules' solution is negative band deadlifts. Okay? So let's use this process and try and find out what the hell's going on. So we start with the core. Is it a passive issue? It's not. How do we know it's not a passive issue? Anyone? Like it looks bad coming off the ground, but it looks good coming down. The passive requirements are exactly the same for both parts of the movement. So because we've seen her put the bar down, it looks all good, we know it's not passive. Right? We know her body's capable of getting there. So now we're starting to wonder, is it an active thing? Is it not? Can she get there? It's how does she get there? So let's think about the active side of it. Talked about the two primary things you focus on being proprioception and coordination for the active issues. What is the difference proprioceptively and with coordination between pulling a bar, doing the deadlift, coming up off the ground, and putting it back down?
The concentric eccentric, like the different
The weight's the
muscle
same.
contraction.
That's not even close to Kim's 1RM. It's not a strength issue. The bar weight's the same. So what's the difference putting it down, picking it up? Fair enough, you can, eccentrically you can withstand a little bit more load in most movements than you can with where you have to produce a concentric force to move. So that could be it. But we want to find out what it is. So what about the proprioceptive difference? How much does that bar pull on you when you're on the top? Proprioceptively, it's very different to pulling off the ground. You're progressively told through more and more load and more leverage, this is how you need to resist the bar, or that's going to happen, right? So when Kim starts at the top and goes down, that bar gives her feedback to find her way to the bottom correctly. So, it's not passive. We haven't even left the core yet. Not passive, definitely not strength. Proprioceptive, maybe. Coordination, maybe. We know there's a big proprioceptive difference of pulling the bar up versus letting it down. Coordination, very different off the ground and coming up the top. You've got great proprioceptive feedback coming back down. You've got fuck all coming off the ground, right? So the issue for Kim was she doesn't know how to set up without any resistance on the ground. Solution, she knows how to do this. So we need to get her, we talked before about you need to know what right feels like so you know when you're doing it wrong. Negative deadlifts. Start at the top, come down. When that bar touches the ground, don't let go of the tension. Spend a second there, realise what it feels like, come back up. Cool. So over time, you get more and more familiar with what right feels like. That's pretty much it. Do anything after that?
Lots of broomstick.
Yes, broomstick's
What
great.
percentage of 1RM do you need to do?
We spent a full cycle, didn't we?
What percentage of 1RM
Which
do
you
you need to
hated
do to
before.
get that feedback?
But it
worked.
worked.
Yeah. Like you just need enough that
Enough
you
to
can feel the weight.
Yeah.
Basically, like even with a 20 kilo bar, start going down there, you feel how you need to resist the bar.
Yeah.
Assuming, lower extremities are doing their thing correctly, the bar's staying close to the body. Like I said with Kim, when she came down, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is, how does she come off the ground? All right, what's the difference between coming down and going up? Very different feedback from the bar. Bottom you have none, top you have shitloads. And it gets progressively more difficult as she goes down. So basically, she's just adding a piece of the puzzle as she goes further down. It just sort of builds up as she goes in. But off the bottom, you need to know what that right position feels like and trust that you have it. So when you stand up, it all looks good.
I find a lot of people that are not too experienced with the deadlift are say they've got 5 reps. The first one's ugly, and then the touch and go ones, the next 4 are all fine. So
Right. What's the difference between the first rep and all the other
they
ones?
don't have
It's
that
an eccentric
feedback.
phase.
Exactly. So you've got that, you've got your reference point after that.
Yeah.
The thing is, the broomstick valve can give you an idea of how to go through that range of motion. It can't teach you how to resist the bar.
Yeah,
Because there's just no way.
That's right.
Right? So what we did was we compartmentalised that problem. We started with the biggest, the thing that will sort of fuck up everything else when it doesn't work, which is the core. We eliminated passive issues. Then we started breaking down the active issues by trying to understand what happens at different phases of the movement. And then we tested it. If she doesn't let go of tension of the bar at the bottom and comes back up, does she still have that problem when she's coming off the ground? If she doesn't, it's not a strength issue, right? It's a proprioceptive issue. If she maintains that feedback, she's good. She got to the bottom and went to pull, and that happened again. She was holding onto the weight. Then we started to look at something a bit different.
I get them to set up, so they can start off with the bar, set like that, and maybe you're going down and then reach down and grab it and stuff.
I tend to teach, like I'm teaching new people a deadlift, I'll get them set up from the top. But what I just said then, where if she got back down to the bottom, went to pull and then rounded, got a different problem. That's what Jules had.
And the other thing you need to consider too is if you're working with, I guess just because someone's a seasoned lifter doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing it the right way, but some seasoned lifters will set up in a conventional bed. Yeah? Not in a sumo, they'll be nice and flat almost all the time.
And the requirements.
So if you were to go-
actively for sumo and conventional,
Yeah. If
they
you-
look very similar. But talking before, big thing with the glutes is what is the angle of flexion of the hips? The difference between that and that is like double the angle, right? Really significant.
A couple of times I have their old their arch, like their kyphosis is like this, so when they get into the deadlift, like I say,
Do they like that when they're standing up?
neutral spine, they can stand like that. And I'll say neutral spine, and they'll try and get it back, but still have that curve, but that's their
Yeah, the problem is that if they don't know how to do it without the bar, and then they set up that way with the bar now, like if you got them to do a broomstick valve and it was all fucked up, and then you put them on a bar and it looks good, what's the difference between having a bar and doing the broomstick valve? They can pull themselves into position with the bar, so they can cheat the movement and make it look great from the outside. It's all fucked up. So, as we were saying before, don't get distracted by the external look of it. Right, so the second one is Jules. Looks exactly the same. Pulls off the ground, back rounds. Gets to the top, straightens out, comes back down, looks perfect. Sorry. Big difference between him and Jules. Jules is right at the top of his capacity, strength-wise, when he's committing this fault. So again, we go through the same process. Start with the core. Is it a passive problem? No. Why isn't it a passive problem? No. Right. Right. So for the same reason we know it's not for Kim. It looks fine when he's coming back down. So it's an active issue. Proprioception coordination. It's a little bit different in this case because I've worked with Jules a lot for a little while by this point. I knew that he could set up at the bottom in a deadlift. Right? At lower weights, it looks fine. So it's not proprioception, it's not coordination. He knows how to do it. So core's off. Go to the interfaces. Doing a deadlift, what's under more stress, the hips or the shoulders? Anyone? Hips? Yeah, massively. So let's have a look at the hips. Passively, does he have the range to get there with hip flexion? Of course he does. Because if he does it at lower weights, it looks exactly the same, but he doesn't commit the fault. So we know it's not a passive issue. He's got the range to get there. Is it an active issue? Does he have the coordination and proprioception? He does it lower weights, but when it gets heavy, it falls apart. We know he can resist it here because when he does it eccentrically, so again, it's not that core issue with the core. So what can we do with the hips? Talking before about the gradient angle of flexion, especially when the loads increase, very difficult to keep those glutes on at the bottom. How do we test that? We palpate. Right? When we were doing the glute function test before, push into the muscle belly, feel if it's on or off. Basically, looks a bit weird. Basically, get Jules to do a deadlift. I just poke my fingers into the side of his butt. Get him to set up from the top and work his way down to pick up the bar. Good, 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 good. Glutes are on. As soon as that weight, once he has to start bearing that weight, glutes disappear. The hips aren't doing their job between here and here, so that rounds, right? Because remember where the hips actually have the spine, the sacrum goes straight into the hips, are essentially attached to each other, right? So the problem is a bit of strength, but it's actually a motor control issue. There's so much stress on him that he can't maintain that glute contraction under really high load. So how do we resolve the problem? Because I know that he can do it. Lighter weights, it's on, right? Heavier weights, all of a sudden it just disappears. So how do we deal with the problem? The solution was a negative band deadlift as opposed to a negative deadlift. We kept putting him on the same weights, we'd basically just be picking the scab and it would never actually sort itself out. It'd just be heavy, you'd get there and it'd go. What we needed was to buy him the opportunity to have his, not to be so focused on shit, that's heavy, that's heavy, that's heavy, as he's standing up. Give him the opportunity to focus on maintaining that contraction. But we don't want to waste the movement. Still want it to be heavy for him at the top. So we use a reverse band. Bars on the ground, bands come up and attach onto the rig here. What that means is at the top of the movement, the bands start to lose more and more tension, the bar gets heavier and heavier and heavier as it gets higher and as it gets easier for him to maintain that contraction. At the most difficult part of the movement for him, the bar is the lightest because the band is placing enormous tension on that barbell. So what we've done is buy him the opportunity to focus on fixing that consistent contraction at the bottom because it's lighter, and as it gets easier for him, the bar gets heavier. Right? We could have just done it with lighter weight, just waste that second half of the movement. And for anyone who knows drills, if you make him try and go backwards and lift weight, it's too easy for him, he cracks the shits. Right? So you've got to find a way to make it work for fine. That one was much more involved. Does it make sense to people, sort of this process that we're going through, and realise that your ability to understand and solve problems through that process is heavily dependent on your knowledge of the movements, how you can describe the passive and active stresses in the different types of movements at the different locations and how they relate to each other, and how your client fits onto those, whether they feel or don't. Cool? Any questions? Because that's really important.
If you are finding, and most of us will find stuff, and you're not sure, please ask.
Oh, yeah.
Ask me, ask Sam, ask Al, ask Rach, whoever. Let's talk about the issue and see if we can't put our heads together and figure it out.
Because everyone tends to everyone has their own things that they're really interested in. It might be like, yeah, I know shitloads about running. It might be like, well, I know everything about deadlift, a squat, and a bench press if you're Joe, right? If Joe wants to know something about running, probably go talk to someone that knows more about running than he does, right? And then you take that knowledge and now it's yours. It costs you nothing, doesn't weigh anything, and keep it for as long as you remember it. Lean on other people because they might see the problem differently to you and help you get to that answer. And that's the main aim. If we have time, I think we'll have time too because we've rushed it through pretty quick. Once we've gone through the specific solutions, which will be more practical stuff, I want to go back and the screenings that you guys did, talk about some of the weird things that you found and how we might be able to use this process to address it. Alright. There were 3 points, key points for a custom solution, which was that stuff we just went through. Al, do you want to give us one? 3 key points.
Make your problems a
Compartmentalize problems, definitely.
Then you want to follow the flow chart basically, so start with core.
Yeah, so that compartmentalization is that process essentially. So locations, types of stress, that's the order in which we're sort of compartmentalizing. Yeah, right. Compartmentalizing problems, which understand the order in which power is expressed, and use that order to start assessing your problems. At each location, assess passive stress before active stress. Do it the other way around, you're just wasting your own time. Remove opportunities to train the wrong area or perform the movement incorrectly, retest to assess progress. Right? And you basically just either get them to do the movement again if it's a movement specific thing, if it's something you found in the screening, redo that assessment from the screening and see if they score better this time around. Right, specific solutions. This is going to be the easy. Solutions to the problems you find during the first three tests, which are all passive, hip scale, quadruped rock, the supine straight arm raise. There is no solution. Don't try and fix them. You can't. That's the whole point of understanding the passive stress. If a passive demand exceeds your client's capacity, modify the exercise. Non-negotiable. If you're unsure and you think it might be muscle tone, contraction and rest, outsource it. It's outside our scope of practice, right? Even there's still a bit of argy-bargy about whether you can actually palpate the muscle tone reliably or not anyway. But in any case, outsource it. Send it to a physio, send it to a colleague. Find out whether it's muscle tone or whether it's structure.
Preferably someone that you know can actually help with the issue. Don't just send or go to your physio and they not taking anything away from occupational physios, but you know, someone that understands what we're doing here.
If you don't know someone, ask someone in the gym, because there'll be someone here that knows someone.
Or Colin.
Was that?
Colin.
Yeah, I mentioned Colin. Colin's, I don't know what his other guys are like.
Chris really good.
Chris is good. Chris is fucking great.
Yeah.
Right, specific problems. The arch test. Come across big bellies. Two types of big bellies. Hard bellies, soft bellies. Soft bellies get out of the way and they spread out when you're lying prone on the ground. Hard bellies don't. Got like a big beer gut, it tends to be pretty solid. And it's basically just going to be a rocking point for them. It might move a bit, but it tends to sort of stay together as one piece. If you're trying to get a client to do the arch and they have a big belly, they're going to have a hard time. They've got way more weight that they've got to lift up. The other thing is, if you're looking at the front of them, or the bit that's closest to the ground, it's not a reliable source of whether they're actually maintaining an arch, because that fat will just shift around the body and it's not reliable. So what you want to do is look at the top of the body. What's happening with the back? What's happening with the butt? Does that relationship, when they do the self-assisted one, that's your reference point. When they get there, have a look at it. Get a rough idea of the angle by eyeballing it. And as they let go, does it look like it remains fairly consistent? Okay? Big bellies are going to be a pain in the ass for the arch test and the hollow test. You basically just have to find a way to accommodate them. Again, the main thing is we want to see if they can resist flexion in the arch test and resist extension in the hollow test. But it's way harder for the hollow test.
Yeah, what, I mean,
I'll go on to the hollow test after
Yeah,
this one.
okay.
That's good to know. Was it about the hollow test?
yeah.
Yeah. Progression for the arch test. We start with short levers. Okay, so we've got the extremities are our levers for the arch test. So the progression is going to be, if they're here, okay, legs in, arms in. That way there's the smallest amount of leverage possible on the spine. If you want to progress it and make it more difficult, one arm, one leg, both arms, both legs. Cool? Another thing, if you find when you're testing people for, really any test, and they sort of have this inconsistent ability to maintain a neutral spine, make sure they're getting all the air out of their lungs before they set up for the position. The process of setting all that is get the air out, contract the space, breathe into that contracted space, and keep it there. Do it the other way. It's like blowing up a balloon and trying to close your hands around it. It's not going to happen. That balloon is going to push out all different wherever there's a gap. Close your hands, blow up the balloon inside your hands. Anyone's done like a really heavy farmer's walk or a yoke walk, and you suck in a whole bunch of air and then get tight. As soon as you're walking and you have to take a breath, it closes. closes back around. And you take short, sharp little breaths because you've constricted all that space for the contraction. You need it to be stable. Hollow test, the same thing. Big bellies are going to be a big problem though, because that weight's going to be pushing on them and making it very difficult to get them into that position to begin with, because the fat just isn't going to compress enough if there's enough of it. So you want to get them as far as you can. Now, in the arch test, I said don't look at the side closest to the ground. This time, it's the opposite. Don't look at the top, because that fat is not going to give you a clear indication of whether there's a curve in the spine. What you want to look for is when they do the self-assisted one, have a look at where the shoulders are off the ground before they lower. Same with the hips. See if that relationship, the space between those 2 points in the ground, see if that changes during the movement. But again, if there's enough weight on them, they're going to find it really hard just to get enough tension to be able to get the position correctly. The progression is the same. Start with short levers, work to long levers. So you'd start with the arms alongside the body and the legs in nice and close. Opposite arm, opposite leg, opposite arm, opposite leg. Cool? And then if you want to get real fancy with it, roll from one to the other. Right? So then it becomes, we talked before about axial stiffness and appendicular mobility. Can you roll from the hollow to the arch, which actually requires you to move the spine, which is even more difficult, without losing tension, without getting wobbly, all that sort of stuff. And you have to breathe through the process. Again, get the air out of their lungs before they start. Broomstick bow. If you find any problems during the broomstick bow, the solution is almost always going to be more broomstick bow. Right? Talked before, it's really hard for them to get it wrong. And you don't have to be there for them to practice it, as long as they remember what those points of contact are supposed to be. If you do see some issues, the two main ones are probably going to be they can't really find a consistent spine position, or they're going to be sort of twitching and moving really inconsistently as they're going down. Arch work, so that they can resist and get into a good position even though there shouldn't really be that much weight on them, and glute function. If those glutes are twitching on and off, you're going to find it very difficult to control that flexing, right? You might start just rounding the spine and trying to squat into it. Again, if you find faults, try and compartmentalize them and deal with them as individuals. Deal with them as individual problems, then bring them back and perform the whole test as a whole to see whether they've made progress. Squats test. This could be like a whole lecture on its own. Because the squats test is like the biggest thing, biggest time sink in that entire screening process. There's a lot to capture. So again, go into the cheat sheets and look at that compared to the section of the cheat sheets. See what you can double up on to try and understand the problems that you're finding. As you move into the physio, which was super useful for me. I had really big thoracic extension. There you can see some of the, they try and sort of manipulate the joint, and they'll basically get you to cross your arms across your chest, They'll put their fist under the thoracic spine and basically just put their weight on top of you. Didn't work. Lifted me completely up off the edge, dropped his weight and my weight onto that fist. Nothing. It sort of just went, and then didn't move at all. So it probably would have been about 140 kilos of weight going onto it, no movement at all. What we found was that we could work it very slowly over time. Now the thing about this movement is they have to understand how to do that first. They have to understand that hollow body part where we lock down the ribs, because they're going to need that to create resistance. I'll do it over here so hopefully everyone can see it, and I'll just do it on here because it's the easiest. So we're going to place the roller at the base of the thoracic spine. Does everyone know how to find the base of the thoracic spine? Yep, where the ribs end, the thoracic spine ends. Basically, find the lowest rib, work your way around. If you think you're too low, just go up a little bit, right? Rough approximation doesn't have to be perfect. So for me, it's about there. Now what I'm going to do is lock that, lock this. What I'm going to try and do is everything spine-wise above the roller, I want to try and roll that around and get my shoulders to touch the ground without moving anything below. Right? It's not going to look like that, but that's what you want to have in your head. The client needs to have in their head as they're going through it. So I get all the air out of my lungs, get tight here. I'm going to try and roll my shoulders back until I'm basically at my, I can't go any further without letting go of this and having that sternum pop up. Once I get there, I get really tight,
require greater
push
thoracic
hard
extension.
into it for 6 seconds,
And the overhead
that
squat,
tight to resist it.
there's going to be
Come up.
a couple of big ones.
Relax, go
The main
through
one
the
is
process
sit
again.
back.
So that's as far as I can go, get tight, and
And
try and push
squat
for more
start
range.
Go like that as they go down. With the
6 seconds and
start
stop.
wanting to do.
Be aware, if your arms are too far back,
Scapula,
and
make
make
sure
sure out
that
that
this
it's
is
going to
how
get
they
So
stabilize.
this is normally the easiest, or here,
And thoracic extension.
shimmy down an inch, and I just keep
Again,
repeating that
assessing
process as I go up.
thoracic extension is outside our
As they get
range.
higher and higher,
Can do.
their range will get shorter and shorter and shorter.
Mobility
What we
growth.
don't want
Get them to do it
is
through
them to sort of
2
get to a point and go,
makes
yep,
it
and they open up this around the lumbar,
understanding why
and then
something
it's a
works.
really
Small
small, relatively nuanced movement. But you can see if you don't know how to close that rib cage down, you don't have the skill to resist that part of it. Get them to go
You grab like
basically
a
until they get about midway up the scapula, and then the spine can't really do anything because the scapula get in the way. Let's say get about halfway up that scap, come back down to the bottom of the ribs, cycle through it again. Get them to do it after they train. You don't want to fuck with joint integrity before you start training, right? Your distraction, spinal extension, all that sort of stuff should happen after you train. Let's get someone to have a go. Oh. And do you want to have a go at it? Do you want to coach him? He can make sure he sets up correctly. So the first thing
He's going to need a lot of coaching.
Does he know how to close down his ribs?
He's like, I just lay down.
Make sure he's not just doing rolling his shoulders around that, changing that. I mean, you not to tell you how to do your job, but you don't actually have to be able to get up. So you basically, you're talking before, like, get him to do it wrong, and then teach him how to fix the points. So basically, sit him up where you want him, and go right, just roll your shoulders back. I want you to bring this point back to here. So, put a little bit of pressure on the shoulders, see if they can resist it. Good to go. Once you, you can see this figure here.
Yeah.
Once you get to about there,
That's it, yeah.
you run out. The scapula get in the way, and all you can do is pivot from that point. So what you can do is stop them there, or get something that fits between the scapula. But it'll be different for different people. So you can use a peanut. Problem is that they tend to be quite small and they sink in a bit, so it does get hard to actually have anywhere to extend to. When you're trying to arch, Rich, when you're trying to arch back, how does it feel? Where do you feel tension?
Just all my abs really.
Right. So ideally, what you want them to be feeling, you imagine there's a cable that comes from here to here. Basically just putting tension on that cable. So he's trying to pull this together, but at the same time, his back's trying to roll him in the opposite direction. So they should feel tension increase, 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 and nothing actually moves, is what we're looking for.
I've got a proper peanut, get me to grab it from the car.
Sorry?
I've got a proper peanut, get me to get that from the car.
Oh, no, it's still the same process. It just goes up higher. But again, you have to treat the client as an individual. Some people will have space and you can get in there. Other people won't. But just try it for a few weeks. Get them to do it at least 2 cycles. If they've got a roller at home, get them to do it every day, at least once a day at home, 2 cycles. Give it 3 weeks, a month, then retest it on the squats test and see if they have that thoracic load. Yeah?
Can I?
Yeah, go.
I'm meant to do.
Felt like I did nothing there.
Mason, do you want to coach me through the movement? She seems like she's getting it. Just let her go. If you see any problems, point out for
I
her.
just need to feel it.
Right. And it's looking for the same thing you're looking for if you're assessing the hologenics. Does that pop out? Because that's solid. It's really clear in the neck. Changes. Yeah, like either there or there. Because that'll protract the scapula a bit, give you a bit more room. And what you wanted to do is try and round those shoulders around the roller without popping the sternum out.
Can you move your head?
You can move your head, but that's not going to change anything for the thoracic spine.
Get more load, wouldn't it?
What's that?
Get more, like a higher load.
Yeah, head weight's the same. The distance from the body is the same. It is, like here to here, it is, the lever itself is slightly longer, but it's not, we don't want weight. We want it to be deliberate. We want them to control that extension. So when they're like, oh, I don't have range, go, no, I can extend my spine, and it's invaluable for deadlifts. You go, no, resist the weight. They go, oh, I know how to do that in the thoracic spine as well, not just sort of, contract the whole thing. They get more nuance with their control. Yeah, you see how you're starting to get under the scapula and it doesn't want to, basically it's like a seesaw. It just wants to pivot at that point.
I'm just basically pushing it down.
What you want to do, this stays here when you try and roll that around without popping that sternum out. So really tight here and try and push your shoulders to the ground. You stop there, get really tight, and then try and, so you're basically pulling in 2 different directions. This is trying to stop you from opening, pushing down that way, so it's trying to root you over here as much as you can. 6 seconds is what you need to change. It's a P&F stretch. And then come back up, just shimmy down an inch, go again. But for P&F stretches, 6 seconds is the minimum time for change. But it doesn't last for too long, which is why we want to keep doing it over time. Oh. Oh.
Sorry?
I feel so much smaller.
If you have a look at Supple Leopard, there's a couple of grasp mobs in there where they'll basically get a peanut. What they'll do is get a weight on the chest, or they'll get a plate, wrap their arms around, and again, because that motion protracts the scapula, allows the peanut to get right in there, and all you'll do is very small flexion and extension, or even just using your feet to sort of rock you backwards and forwards, and just trying to get a very small amount of movement in that vertebra.
It's hard to stick to because it takes a long time to see just the smallest.
And that's what's so hard about, especially the motor control stuff. It's a pain in the ass to coach because it's really hard to motivate someone to do it. It's like, prevention's better than a cure. Yeah, but prevention sucks. No one wants to do prevention.
GenCast.
But you get really competitive people who go, well, you're going to lift more weight.
Coach calling the kettle black.
Standing straight arm raise. Oh. We talked about these faults before. Remember we were talking about how poor scapular function manifests in different movements? That's what all these are. Rib lift is a little bit different, maybe. You can just have rib lift because they're just not keeping this tight, but it can look like that because they hyperextend the lumbar spine to get that overhead range. So if we want to fix that, get them to do the hollow body. Well, they have to have that control, not just to hold that position, but to regain it.
I have maybe more of a statement, but maybe it's a question as well. When you've got people who are in combat contact sports, even high-powered sports like sprinting, and you're doing a motor function assessment with them, you can cue them to the right position most of the time, for some of them because they've got pretty good body context.
Oh yeah.
But does that mean that they're going to default to that under the pressure of competition?
Potentially.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Is it going to be unconsciously competent? I guess that
Some people will be, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember this girl's sister at another gym, and she used to be a gymnast. And I was like, oh, your glutes turn up with a squat. She's like, oh, okay. Sweet. She knew how to do it. And
Yeah.
Once she knew, it was just
That was
there.
it.
It was, yeah, she was a freak. It was great for me. Because I didn't
Yeah.
But yeah, you will get people, especially ones who have great, like they're just great with proprioception. They respond really well to close that down. They might not have done it deliberately before, but they have so much sort of control over their body. Like, I know how to do that. I've seen him do it. They find their way there, and they get it. But
Yeah.
trust, but verify.
Yeah.
And the gym is the lab. So
Yeah, that's
when I'm programming, all I'm doing, when the first one, we were talking about programming being a prescription, and I'm just applying different types of stress to find out where their weak points are and then patching over them. So their weak point might be mechanics, might be low, they might not be particularly strong, they might have shit endurance and we need to work on reps. That's what the gym's for, find their weak points and help them resolve them. So yeah, they might be great in testing when there's no load. You go, all right, so the glute function's a great one. When they're in that prone position on the ground, they pass with flying colours.
Yeah.
You get them to start putting a bit of flexion into that hip and they just lose it.
I guess sort of where I'm getting at is, and if we use a well-known example like Michael Johnson, 400 metre world champion, Olympic gold medalist, world record holder. I mean, he's lost those records now, but he had massive lumbar hyperextension. Looked almost lordotic, but you know, if you were to test him, you'd be like, oh, we need to, you know, initially probably think we need to do something about this. But that allowed him to have the mechanics to be.
Yeah, you get some people that are just so like just freakish humans, and they can break every single rule, but because they do it consistently, they can develop that skill.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
And that's the thing, you get someone at such a higher level, you're like, oh, yeah, I could go, oh, well, let's get you, like, say they're an Olympic weightlifter, and you go, oh, no, I want you to do a squat jerk. You go, no. It's like a metal container, don't fuck with it. Yes, the point is starts dropping out. You want to pick your battles really carefully.
Okay.
Because if you've got to rebuild that whole motor pattern, you've got to think about what happens when they're under stress and competition. Are they going to default back to that old one, which they've ignored for the last 6 months, 12 months? It's the Olympics 4-year training cycle.
Well, I've had a similar issue with Zach. You know, being a elite level tennis player.
Yeah.
And you know, like having one elevated scap and elevated shoulder because that's the side that he's always hitting his forehand on, and then going, well, do I pick this up by?
So that's the thing. That's where I'm really reluctant to throw too much weight behind a postural assessment. Partially just because there is so like anatomic variation can be really big. Talking with the passive stuff before, before you ask how you should change it,
Yeah.
ask if you can change it at all.
Yeah.
Should you change it?
Yeah.
So you do that scapular assessment and go, yeah, they
Yeah,
look a bit wonky.
Yeah, but he can still
they both
do it.
work
Yeah,
the way I want
it's
them
true.
to. You know, when they squat, that spine, even though it's in a bit of a weird position, it stays in the same
It does.
position. Yeah.
But it's just that's the default pattern,
Yeah.
and it does actually make him really tight in the hips
Yeah.
because of carrying himself like that through the game. But it's a challenging one because
I mean,
you
is
think long term is that going to have it shorten his career?
Well, yeah, the honest answer is pretty much always
Yeah.
going to be, it depends.
Yeah.
Really, it depends on what
It's just a
happens.
good discussion to have, I think.
Yeah,
because
and that's
it's-
so. I thought about including this other phrase in here, and I thought, no, it might just be a little bit too weird, and you worried I was going to have to explain it too much. But when you get all of these sorts of problems, especially if you get a weird problem, you go around the gym and everyone's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. If you don't know what the truth is, just try not to lie. Right? So even though you don't know what the perfect answer is, you go, yeah, but I know it's not that. I know it's not that, and I know it's not that. It's that same compartmentalisation process. We go, well, I think the answer's somewhere in here. Cool, everything outside of that goes off the table. So even if you don't know what the right answer is, just find out what you know to be wrong. There's another saying which communicates the same
Right.
thing. You give a sculptor a block of stone, and you say, make me an elephant. What does the sculptor do? Gets rid of everything that doesn't look like an elephant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just push wrong answers away until you get a smaller and
Yep.
smaller and smaller group of likely answers.
Very good.
Because we're not looking for perfect answers here. It's just unrealistic. What we're looking for is to get as close to the truth in as many instances as possible. Right, so standing straight arm raise, the rib lift, hollow body. Teaching to follow that position back down. Bent elbow.
That's not huge.
They're coming up, they're good, and then they start wanting
Never
to bend
change
the
it.
elbow as they get back to end range. Compare it to your passive assessment, supine straight arm raise. You go, well, I know they can get here without bending the elbow, so now your work needs to be, why can't they get there on their own? What's holding them back? So you start going through that compartmentalisation process. Limited arm width. Again, go back to the passive assessment and find out what their limitation actually is. Cool. Key points for fixing motor control. This is really messy. We get to do some more practical stuff. 3 key points for addressing motor control issues. Don't pick the scap. Contraction determines range of motion, right? If you're, again, going with the glutes, if they can maintain a contraction here and you put them back squatting, you have to accept that every time they go past there, the glutes are going to go off. You are what you do repeatedly. Every time they go past that and you let them without making sure those glutes are on, you reinforce that motor pattern. Okay? One of the big things with urology is that you don't undo anything, right? You just have to create a new pathway. You don't undo the old work, you have to override it with a new circuit. Accumulate time, not reps. I would rather have a client who does 10 sets of 5 perfect reps over the course of the day than one client who knocks out 50 reps in one hit. Yeah? You want to accumulate time, not repetitions. So that means they might be, even if they do less reps, but if it's slow, perfect, that's what you want. Do it fast, you can cheat your way from point A to point B. You do it slow, and especially if it's something unloaded, you have to show that you're competent from one end to the other. It's much harder to cheat. Other one is be opportunistic. Right? You've got someone you're trying to fix their glute contraction. When do you use your glutes? Every step, every time you open a door, every time you turn a corner in the car. Take the skill home. Don't just practice it when you're in the gym. Otherwise, you're just not going to get ahead of the problem. They have to take the skill with them. Every time they open a door, squeeze the button, then pull the door. Everyone's played corners in a bus, something like that as a kid. Turn right, camera's got shitloads of roundabouts, squeeze the right butt cheek to resist. Turn left, same deal. Walking's another big one. We'll go into that when we start dealing specifically with the glute problems. Right, glute function. The really difficult thing with solving motor control problems is that it's really hard to have that reference point for them, knowing what right feels like, so they know when they're doing it wrong. It's a bit easy with glutes, and it's a fucking nightmare with scapular retraction. But if you've got the money, Compex, put it on, leave it on for as long as they'll take, as long as they can handle it when they're in the gym, turn it up as high as they can.
About like less expensive, like a TENS or something like
So
that.
TENS, I think the newer TENS, they still call it a TENS,
Yeah.
but it doesn't actually perform the traditional function of a TENS. So the primary role of a TENS is to fuck with nociceptors.
Yeah.
Right? So what it does is just sends a whole bunch of information. So the nociceptors find it difficult to send pain signals, muscles relax. Anyone's ever hit their thumb with a hammer, you shake it,
Yeah.
brain really struggles to interpret movement and pain signals at the same time. So that's why we do that sort of stuff. That's why a TENS machine is effective. Compex is different.
Yeah.
TENS, I think certain ones I have seen, or variations of it,
Yeah.
that provide the same thing, which is just how hard can you contract that muscle with electronic stimulation. I remember the first time we put it on Joe,
Yeah.
I think he was doing like band and leg extensions, and you just see about halfway through, and then it would just fire the leg
Yeah.
through it. That's the worst option you've ever had in your entire life. But it's incredibly effective.
If we invest in one,
Yeah.
can you do a coaching session for our team on
Yeah,
how?
I've got some stuff I've pulled off the internet that shows you where to put certain things.
Yeah.
But its value goes way beyond the glute function stuff. Big value for the motor control is you don't have to limit the range of motion. You're no longer beholden to how far they can maintain that contraction because the electronic stimulation does it for you. You can do your full range of squats straight off the bat. Whereas normally you would wait until you push them until they lose contraction, recontract, and come back to the start. It's also great for post-surgical stuff, for a joint injury, because we were talking before about arthrogenetic muscle inhibition, but the brain can't contract the muscle. It's basically circumvents the problem by hacking it at the source. We don't need the brain because we're contracting it externally with electronic stimulation. The other big plus is it mitigates muscle atrophy after surgery or joint injury. So even though they might be unable to do certain things like they're in bed or something like that in a hospital, put that on, get that muscle contraction, has a really significant effect for mitigating atrophy and can get them back on the field faster.
Has everyone heard of the Compex? Knows what it is? Electromuscular stimulation, basically. I mean, a lot of elite teams will have full sets of these, and they'll do it.
So Manly, the basic.
Manly, when they won the premiership, they were the first team to fully invest in. I think they bought 28 of them.
Yeah, because you can see them like they get subbed off and they have it on them on the side of the field.
Yeah, and in recovery, you'd have 10 blokes on the side of the pool, all in Compex, the others in the pool, swap, dry off.
It's real, like if you have a joint injury, they're fantastic. Because when you have swelling after a joint injury, that's through the lymphatic system, right? The lymphatic system is a one-way system. But it needs muscle contraction to pump that garbage fluid out and get the good stuff back in. But if it's really swollen, the last thing you want to do is remove it, right? So again, move around the problem. Electrical stimulation at the source, muscle contraction will help cycle that fluid. You don't have to worry about ice in the area.
They kind of like ultrasound. Remember the years ago they used to do ultrasound, like just about everything.
Yeah. Last time I heard someone actually using ultrasound rehab was 2005. I haven't, like I've done quite a bit, like it's been done to me when I've been in rehab. I've never seen it since 2005. Maybe there, but I've never really ever seen it. Yeah. But if you don't have a Compex, which is fair enough, because I think the one that we were using here for, that was like $800. Yeah,
Well,
if you can get cheaper versions.
I've had two of my clients buy the. What's it for? Yeah, the blue,
that guy
blue
came in who had one of the
Jared and Sandy both have one now, and we use it regularly. I mean, Jared, they've both just had knee operations for different
Yeah.
injuries, and both been using it.
I think I tried to like find some information on it. The reason I got the one that I used
Yeah, it's
was
got more
because it has
programs.
very specific
Yeah.
work, like contraction and rest cycles. And because of that, you can train the muscle fibers specifically for rehab. So after you have a joint injury, type 1 muscle fibers are fine, nothing really happens to them. It's type 2 fibers that basically the brain can't deal with, and they're the ones that really atrophy. The problem is the type of work you have to do to use type 2 muscle
Yeah.
fibers can't do when you have a joint injury. So again, it moves around the problem. Anyway, don't have a complex, something that Joe and I worked on a couple of years ago now
Yeah.
after I started, is a glute reconditioning program, which works. It just takes a lot longer. Right, so glute reconditioning program, there's a few exercises in there, and all those rules for fixing motor control problems still apply. You've got a side supine glute contraction, kneeling hip extension, clams, supine cycling, and walking. So we'll go through all of those. Mason, can I grab you? You guys want to get in a position where you can see? So the first one we'll do is side glute contraction. I just want you to lie on your side for me. Find yourself a bit of space. However you want. Just lying on your side. Cool. So the first thing we want to be able to do is not tilt the torso. So I need you, come to there. So if you need to support yourself with that arm, no, don't come up. Yeah, we want to be on the ground. Because the thing is, right at the beginning, the first thing we want to do is learn to contract that muscle in as much isolation as possible. If he's tilted, the abs become a big problem, the hip flexors become a problem. We're talking about when the glutes aren't working, what becomes overactive? Hamstrings, hip flexors. That's what we're worried about activating. So we want to reorder the pattern. So put a little bit of a bend in your knees for me. That's it. Relax your legs. Cool. Now, what I'm looking at and what I want is basically these legs stacked right on top of each other. Feet are flat, basically as if he's standing like this, but he's lying down on his side. Place that arm, right arm, that's it, palm down. That's it, and use that to balance, so we don't want to turn back too far. Yeah, there you go. Cool. If you're worried about rolling, you don't necessarily have to push, just use the weight. Just extend the arm out in front of you and they'll stop rolling back. Once you've balanced, what he's going to do is he's going to push his finger into his butt cheek and the other one into his hamstring. So you're basically going to do thumb in there, fingers in there. All he's going to do is try to breathe and squeeze the butt without the hamstrings coming on. So you can do that. Hamstrings can come on, the glute has to contract first. Now you twist it back that way, so yeah. You want to try and feel like there's as little tension in your body as possible. It's really, really difficult to do. It'll take them a while to do it, and the way this works is the better it gets, the faster it gets better. Now there's an alternative to this. Lie on your back for me, and bring your feet up, so you're sort of like, yeah, there we go. Cool. Same deal again. I want you to be able to put a thumb into your butt so you can feel that contract. And so basically just sitting here, okay, and I'm just going to hit finger and pushing into the butt, finger pushing into the hamstring. Just like, yeah, it's the same idea. You need to be able to feel that resistance. So again, breathing, making sure my hip flexors aren't on, and I'm going to try and squeeze my glutes without turning on my hamstrings. The hamstrings can come on, glutes have got to come off first, right? And again, just accumulating time in this position until they build up that skill. Really, when you start, you can just do this, and it might take them a couple of weeks to get there. But, talking forward, don't put the scab, don't reinforce the motor pattern you don't want. Make sure they can do it deliberately, and then we can start getting more difficult. Kneeling hip extension. Now we're starting to get a little bit more complex. Toes on the ground. I'm basically letting my heels dig into my butt a little bit, right? What I'm going to try and do is squeeze my glutes so that this starts before this does, and I'm just going to extend my hips making sure that my torso remains perpendicular to the ground. Really slow, slow enough to feel it go wrong. If I get to full hip extension, great. Make sure they're still on. Now the difficult part happens. Can I go back without losing that control? I can already feel the left arm that wants to go already. What you're going to find with a lot of them is that they'll start, they're good here. They get to here, and then it goes. That's when they stop. Okay, we talked before, contraction determines range. If they get here and they die, squeeze, come back to the start. What they find, especially if they're making progress, the quads will be wrecked because they're basically controlling this movement to begin with. As they get better, they'll feel the quads let go more and more and the hip flexors let go more and more as the glutes start to take over. Clamps. Clamps basically have that same starting position that we just had Mason in before. So again, setting up basically in that standing position with bent knees. We want this to be fairly relaxed, so we don't want it tilted forwards or backwards, so we don't have a contraction we don't want. Should be able to draw roughly a straight line between the midfoot, front of the heel, through the shoulder, roughly. This is glute median. Thing is, they're not going to be able to feel the muscle contracting. You actually have to move it to really know whether you've got the muscle. And it's basically like you slice off a part of an apple. That's all it is. You're just going to feel this little sort of mound here as you come up. It starts to push itself out. What I want to do is maintain this position. So I don't want to do that or that. I want that going forwards or backwards. I want to try and bring it straight up as high as I can without losing that contraction, and then control the descent. Does everyone know what the glute med feels like when it turns on? You don't come over and jam finger in there. So again, slow and controlled, slow enough to feel it go wrong. So I still can't feel it. Now I can feel it right there. So you feel that there's nothing. It'll start to go up. Feel it just keeps steady. Yeah. So it's just like you slice the edge off an apple and you've got this little tiny mound that sits right about there. So there's nothing as it lifts. You feel it start to push itself out a little bit. It's not big, it's quite small. And the further down it gets, the smaller it becomes. Oh. So those are the clamps. Supine cycling. Supine cycling, starting in that same bent knee position we had Mason in, but now we're going to add movement into the mix. And what makes this difficult is that we're actually going for hip flexion, so it's sort of an eccentric contraction here. Okay, we're asking you to stretch without losing contraction completely. So make sure that the glutes are on. What I'm going to try and do one leg at a time is to pull that knee as close to my body as I can get without rolling my hips off the ground, maintaining that glute contraction and coming back down and then changing legs. To begin with, you'll find a lot of, as soon as I go to lift that foot up, it'll just go. So to begin with, normally it's just glutes on, up, they lose contraction, recontract, go back to the start. And you just eke out more range over time as they develop the skill. The last one's walking. This is great because it fits that idea of being opportunistic. Every time your foot hits the ground, realistically that glute should contract. Hopefully people do a little bit of walking during the day, even if it's just walking from one office cubicle to another. So every time they step, squeeze that butt cheek. And it's much more difficult than it sounds. Other thing is, if they lock out their knees, they'll anteriorly tilt their pelvis and it becomes harder. So you actually don't want to lock out the knee. You want to wait until it's just about to lock out and then pull it forward and go for the next step. If you're finding it really hard not to lock out, and like that's that, what's it called, terminal extension, that sort of hyperextension of the knee, you can provide a kinesthetic reference. Get a bit of strapping tape, like this, apply it from just above the back of the knee to just below it, and basically put it right in there. Do it with a slightly bent knee. So that way when they go for full extension, it provides a little bit of a pinch on the skin at the back. They go, shit, now they remember, right? So you can use that small little bit of pain as a teacher. I've still got this, I think you've still got it anyway, don't you, Joe?
Yep,
Version?
I do.
So this is just demoing what those exercises. There's more information in that glute reconditioning for cows perform. Rest, sets, all that sort of stuff. Any questions on these movements? They're pretty simple, but you really want to make sure to begin with that they can turn the butt on without the hamstrings and without the hip flexors. Can't do that, can't progress to any of the other exercises.
I have one with the clams.
Yeah.
I've seen people do it with feet together. They just go like that. They go out off the ground.
Yeah, there is a reason why you don't do it. I can't remember what it is. I think it's because it's not so much the glute median, because it's external rotation of the femur, which is much more a glute thing, and you can cheat it. So sartorius provides a small amount of hip flexion, but will also externally rotate the femur. So really just want to target that glute median specifically. I think as you add that, that's the other one. Talking about the glutes come off, what comes on? Hip flexors, hamstrings, deep external rotators of the hip. So if we do that, deep external rotators come on, we want that glute median. Scap function. This is where the complex pays for itself. This is so hard to teach people because having a reference for it is just ridiculous. Who failed scapular assessment on at least one arm? Yep. Pass on both arms or fail, or
I did one second time spot.
sweet. Who else failed? Did anyone pass on both arms? No, so everyone failed. If I told you to retract and compress your scapula, would anyone know how to do it? Would you even know if you were doing it right or wrong? Right? This is where it becomes really difficult. What was the name of the Joe? What was the name of the powerlifter we had in during the day? Was it Ben?
What did they
Jason.
look
No. That's his wife as well. They used to bring in the lights.
Oh, Dan.
Dan, that's it.
Dan,
Right, so we had Dan here. Dan was deadlifting, and you could see that he'd protract massively. Like, oh, you need to retract your scapula. Tried to give him a whole bunch of things to get him to do. He's like, I have no idea what the fuck's going on. Put the complex on him, and it just went, and just pulled him into position, took it off. It was on him for about 15 seconds. He's like, I know exactly how, like, it's ridiculous. The reference is so good that as soon as it happens once, people are like, I know how to find that position straight away. If you don't,
You've got to get it on the right.
and that's the real, like we tried it with Cat, we just couldn't get it to go. Especially if you have a lot of adipose, like a lot of fat between the pad and the muscle, it's really difficult to get it to contract. But you know when it does, because that scapula just disappears completely. If you don't have complex, there are three versions we'll use. The bottom two, the banded white pull and the lat pull down with the scap focus, that's basically a progression from one to the other. The self-palpate one is sort of like the that sideline glute contraction we just talked about, where before you can do anything else, you need to learn how to turn that on and not that on. So the problem tends to be we need that scapula to set, but we need to stop that pec minor anterior delt from contracting. So what you do is you get them to sit down at the couch when they're at home, thumb goes into the armpit, fingers push against that inferior angle of the scapula. All you want them to do is get the tiniest amount of contraction with the scapula, just to push against the fingers a little bit and compress against the spine a little bit without feeling that. Like some people just won't have the range passively or actively to get there, and that's where you try the other ones as well. But it's a real small movement. Once you get past a certain point, that's going to come on straight away. So thumb in there, the elbow down, and all I want to do is get that smallest amount of movement on the scapula without that co-contraction. If I can do that, I'm miles ahead of the competition. Yeah. Yeah, don't do that. Relax. You want to be really relaxed. Like this whole arm, I'm just letting it hang there. Because of that position, that thumb sort of just gets locked in. Yeah, I'm not holding it there, but it's going to slide out slowly.
Without pec minor.
Yeah, it's really hard. And you have like it's like a Zen thing. You've got to sit there real quiet, real calm,
I can do it.
and the movement will be tiny as far which is real nice. So if I
Just charge through if you are.
I can do it.
Yeah, and then it contracts. So I'm
So
not
you have to
quite
have
all the
close
way
my
in, I'm
eyes.
about halfway, and then it goes on, which is still, yeah. Yeah, you don't have to push it hard. Because they're like,
I thought that one would be.
yeah, but you need your other hand behind your back, push it in there and see if that's actually working. So can you get that scap to retract and compress without any contraction there? So let me do it. That's on already.
I feel like I feel it now.
Yeah. So you want to go right into the corner of the armpit, and you'll feel that it's really sinewy and quite solid, that end of the pec minor. Let's get a couple of bands. I'm not going to use too much bands. So the self-palpation thing is difficult, but it's nifty because they can do it at home. They can take the skill outside the gym and be opportunistic about developing the skill. We've got two other ones. We've got a Y band pull and we've got a lat pull down. Really shit drawing here. So we were talking before about when you develop solutions, you want to take that opportunity away to do it incorrectly. That's the scapula. That's the spine. Right. And the hand again. And that's your elbow, forearm, humerus, and then comes to this scap. Band pull, basically going to use the band to distract the humerus out of the joint and then just try and suck it back down, which gives us that retraction of the scapula. The thing is, the bandwidth is going to be different for each client. Okay? If it's too close, it becomes trap movement. You don't want that. If it's too wide, it becomes much more of a lat movement. So what we want to do is get a rough idea of this point and this point in the scapula and try and draw an imaginary line from where the band attaches here, through the arm, through the shoulder. Yeah? So we're crossing that point. And it'll be different for some people, especially if they're short, it's a bit easier because they can get down lower. Tall people, you might have to get them to kneel on the ground to create enough space, but all you want them to do is let that band distract the shoulder, distract the humerus, and then keeping that external rotation. So elbow, inside of the elbow points to the roof. Just pulling it down, hold for a few seconds, and then let go. Normally I'll get, if I'm programming it in someone's, if I'm putting it in someone's program, I won't give them reps. I'll give them a timer. Yeah, because I don't want them to go, I'll just knock out my 10 reps and go, no, you've got to do 2 minutes work, 3 minutes work. So that way they can take the time to do it perfectly.
Do you say cumulatively or in that?
Yeah, you'll get some. Yeah, you get some.
3 minutes, you just keep going for 3 minutes.
No, so you don't have to do it 3 minutes unbroken, but you do have to accumulate 3 minutes before you start training. Some people, like, it'll be so weak, it'll just fatigue real quick. So they'll have a super light band on, and they'll go, oh, well, I'll do 4 blocks of 30 seconds, so I can get my 2 minutes. That's fine. They can go smaller blocks, as long as they get their full 2 minutes. Cool? Now, the progression of that is a lat pull down with a scap focus. So before we were just focusing on distraction and then pulling it back in to the joint. Now we're going to add the requirement to move the extremities, which makes it much more difficult. What we're looking for at the start, you come over here quickly. Oh, I'm going to make that way lighter. Okay, this is where we start to actually get them to put the skill into practice. So we let the shoulders get distracted, staying fairly upright. We don't want to lean back for this one. suck the shoulders down, and then their challenge is, can they pull the bar down without losing scapular position? Again, don't let them lean back. Up all the way up, arms out, down, forward, up. Okay. So whereas before we gave them one thing and one thing only to focus on: distraction, retraction. Now we're adding stress to it. We're adding load, increasing complexity. Cool. Grant and I tested that progression from the banded wide pull to the lat pull down on quite a few people, and we found it was super successful. It's still not as quick as getting a complex on someone, but we found everyone eventually managed to get the skill. It just took a little bit longer for some people, rather than others. Right, any questions on dealing with glute function problems or scapular problems? Or at least the solutions we talked about. Yeah? Yeah?
Oh, sorry, I was going to say with glute function, you sort of, talking about how so people can often be okay while they're prone.
Yeah.
And then, but as soon as they go into hip flexion and extension, it drops off.
Yes.
So is there a way, a non-too invasive way to
Assess
that?
Yeah.
Because I think that I definitely do that.
Yeah.
Like I've talked to Big G and he's like, you can squeeze your glutes at the bottom, and I've got no. I'm like, just can't.
Yeah. And the thing is, so the one thing I normally look for is get someone to the bottom of the squat, just tell them to squeeze their butt. What happens? The problem is that it can look okay.
Yeah.
But you still don't know which muscle's contracting. So when you're at the bottom of a squat and you get something like my butt's off, if I turn it on, see what happens to my knee? It externally rotates the femur, and now my knees are out. So when you say to someone, pull your knees out, the arse doesn't work, they reef on sartorius, and that pushes the knees out for them. What you want is, if you see those knees come in, bumps come on. Cool? So that's one way, but as I said, it can look like it's all right, even though something else is doing it for you.
It's also the decline plate squats, just to put your tibia in a better position and practice exactly what Sam's saying in that position.
Yeah.
So you are
They
actually
need to know
plantar
that their
flex.
glutes are on.
Yeah.
Another way, again, it's a bit, it's not foolproof, that supine cycling we're talking about. Yep. So I'll get them into this position, and then I'll basically kneel next to them, finger goes into the butt, into the hamstrings, and I'll get them to just try and pull that leg towards their chest and see how far they go before they lose that.
So you as the trainer will do that, so you know.
Yeah, so assuming I'm the client,
Yeah.
trainers here, the thing is, even in this position already, as soon as they lift, if they're already in a more, they're not, I mean, you can start them here and then get them to pull all the way up, but I normally start them there, and I find as soon as they pull, hamstring goes first.
Right.
But yeah, it's not as reliable
Yep.
as doing it prone, but it does give you that flexion element that you're after.
Yeah.
Guys, I want to sort of start seeing some of this stuff with the glute work in our own programs, if you're not already doing it, and then if you identify it for your clients, let's start implementing it, because this is where you'll learn best when you start teaching this stuff.
What about what you do
Yeah. So
What was that, right?
we had a thing with So when we were doing the Ollie course, I had a thing with Rach where we tested her passively, and we know that she can actually get quite far down passively, but actively it's not getting there. So we try and find out what the fault is. The core wasn't the issue. Cool. So we went to the interfaces. Shoulders aren't really involved in hip hinging, right? Unless you've got some crazy load that you're trying to resist, like an overhead squat. She's deadlifting and back squatting. So we look at the hips. We find her ass doesn't work. And for a sprinter, leaving the deadlifting aside for a second, a sprinter whose ass doesn't work is a really big problem. Because when you accelerate off those blocks, you're pushing. Once you get to a certain point, the mechanic changes. Instead of trying to push yourself forwards, you basically create an angle of declination so you maintain a constant state of falling. And then it becomes, can you pick your legs up fast enough to stop yourself falling face first on the ground? Anyone who looks at Usain Bolt running, his angle of declination is like 15 degrees more than anyone else in the competition. It's ridiculous. Guys are like that, and then you've got Usain Bolt like halfway to horizontal. Yeah, once you get to a certain point, you almost hit terminal velocity and you just can't accelerate anymore. So you let gravity and your weight take over, and then it becomes a flexion challenge. So we combined the glute rehab stuff with the broomstick bow for Rachel. So we basically get her going through that deadlift mechanic. Broomstick bow is great because it takes away so many opportunities for her to do it incorrectly. She goes, loses glute contraction. Glutes come on, come back up, cycle through. And so, to begin with, they might only get to here. Then they get a little bit further. Then they get a little bit further. Once they've got the mechanic, sweet, let's add repetitions. Once they've got repetitions, let's add some load. So we're just increasing that stress, challenging their ability to maintain the skill. It's the opposite order to progressing something. We drop the load, then you drop the reps, then you simplify the mechanics. Cool. How's it gone for you since? Because you haven't really had a look at you, since the thing. Yeah, are you still doing did you keep doing the work?
I just,
No. At least you're honest. Right, questions for you. How do you fix passive limitations? You don't. Right, you don't. You accommodate them. So you modify your exercises. How do you progress the arch and the hollow body?
Take your levers out longer.
Right, start with short levers, get longer. What are the 3 key points for motor control? Richard, what's one?
Which one are we?
3 key points.
What are we on to?
Yeah.
Proprioception.
What was that?
Proprioception.
Proprioception. Anyone else? Does anyone remember any of them?
Be opportunistic.
Hey! Don't pick the scab. Yeah? Which is, if you keep picking at the problem, keep allowing it to reinforce itself, it'll never heal. Let contraction determine the range of motion. Accumulate time, not reps. I'd rather you do 1 rep perfectly over 5 minutes than 50 reps in 1 minute that are all shit. Because it's time under tension that gets the job done with this stuff. Be opportunistic. You must take the skill home with you. Practice it at work, practice it in the car, practice it at home. Any final questions? Sweet! Guys did pretty well. We've covered heaps of shit today, not just today's stuff, but the leftover stuff from the last seminar. So, today we started working with interpreting the screen, developing our own solutions, and coaching specific reconditioning exercises, which is what we just finished with. This is important because understanding exercises and the limitations of our clients' bodies is necessary for effective, safe, and fun programming. Right.